Gonna make it through this darkness. A light would shine someday for me. Yes, it will. I know that you won't leave me in this thing. Something doesn't feel right. Could somebody help me? I heard him say, hush, don't say a word. Gonna get messy if anybody heard. I heard him say, hush, don't say a thing. Think about the trouble you put me in. I heard him say, hush, don't you know who I am? A well-known woman, a respected man. Something doesn't feel right. Could somebody help me? Something doesn't feel right. Could somebody help me? I heard him say, hush, don't say a word. Gonna get messy if anybody heard. I heard him say, hush, don't say a thing. Think about the trouble you'll put me in. I heard him say, hush, don't you know who I am? A well-known woman, a respected man. I'm breaking the silence 'cause I'm under attack. No, I'm breaking the silence and take my life back. No, I'm breaking the silence and take my life back. And take my life back. And take my life back.
We are going to be hearing from community members about the impact of the different kinds of workshops and different kinds of community empowerment sessions that were done, and to see what their experiences of it, of the model was, and also what they felt the impact was on the community. So let's proceed right in, and we're going to start with Charlotteville in Tobago with Mr. Arturus Browne.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Arturus Browne from the small community of Charlotteville in Tobago. Now, we, like your community in Togo, Matlot, Arangas, we also benefited from the program. Now, we were very happy that at least one place in Tobago had been selected to participate. We were even more happy that that place was Charlotteville, way up in the northeastern corner. Now, initially, we could not get people to commit themselves to being part and parcel of what turned out to be a very exciting and very informative program. It is a sad indictment on humanity that the few will always have to make sacrifices for the many. And even when the many stand to benefit, even when the many stand to face the opportunity to develop themselves, they squander the opportunity. Now, that was a case in point in our community. But we are satisfied that the persons that did attend on a continuous basis, they as individuals, as parents, as community members, did benefit, and the community did benefit also. Now, let me indicate at this point that generally it is difficult to get males, to attend almost any kind of program at all, and more so programs of this nature. Now, it was a challenge to us to decide how we would present the issue of child sexual abuse to men, given the fact that they may or may not have been people in the community who were predators and who were victims. And therefore, what we attempted to do was to do what we call a street theater, where people from the group went out into the community. Since men would not come to us, on 2 occasions, they went out into the community where the men would like to assemble, and they demonstrated in drama form what they wanted to portray. Now, it was a smashing success, and as a result, some of the men that normally would not have come, they came to the sessions. Now, the issue of parenting was one of the ideas explored. And when we stop to consider that many parents have abdicated their responsibility, and many in particular, for whatever reason, have chosen not to be part and parcel, we were happy that at least some men continuously came to the program. Now, we explored the reality of the fact that for too long, societies have been plagued with the problem of having females doing all the nurturing, doing all the caring, doing all the protection. And then the question is asked, where are the men who are supposed to be the father of the children? Now, many men do not go to work during the day. Even if they do, when they return from work, they prefer to stay by some favored lemon spot, and they are going to spend the rest of the day there. And it doesn't really bother them that the children would have been at school, and when they come home, the mother alone is there to see about the meals, to see about any illness that they have, to see about the homelessness and so on. And some of the men who came, they really indicated that the program impacted positively on them, because they decided from that point on they would endeavor to be better fathers. Now, as we were discussing the issue of gender and sex, men came to recognize that they had a significant role to play, not only in the home, but in the wider society. Now, if you go to church, you're going to see few men there, and you're going to see fewer of those few participating in whatever happens. And in those parts of the church where the children are involved, then the conclusion that the young boys and the girls draw is that only ladies are engaged. And consequently, this negative feature has been spilling over to the young boys, who have drawn the conclusion that issues in church are only related to ladies. Consequently, as they grow older, they decide church is not for me. But the church is a very important institution in society. And there are a number of things that the church can teach and does teach that will complement what is taught at home. Consequently, if men of their own volition choose not to be at church where they can learn these things, then it becomes very difficult, if not totally impossible, for them to instill any principles in their sons. Consequently, boys grow up in homes where the issue of moral and social values is the domain of the mother. Ask yourself the question. In a single parent home, in the majority of cases, the single parent is the mother. Where is the influence of the man? And in one of our sessions, I pointed out to the presenters as well as to the people who were there that as parents, and in particular as mothers, we have to ask ourselves two very critical questions. One, what kind of man will my son become? Two, whom will my daughter marry? Because we have the very disturbing and very disgusting feature of young ladies who are very progressive, very forward-looking, and when you look at the male companions that they pick up, it's a shame. And then you need to ask yourself, what is the matter? How is it that a young lady who seemingly is ambitious, seemingly is intelligent, and is apparently making some headway in life, would choose a companion way beneath her level? He can't manage himself. He can't manage anything at all, but he wants to manage her. Now, if that relationship results in children, what contribution does he have to make to the billion of children? Not only that, there is the even more disgusting feature of men who will not do anything to better their position and empower themselves, making the claim that they want a woman who does work. No, so they want a woman who does work to marry them. but they're not talking anyway to mind anybody. Now, that was a very significant feature that came out of the issue on parenting, where men came to recognize that they have a serious responsibility to take care of their wives or their women and their children. Because if I understand what the scriptures tell me, then God gave man the responsibility as leader. But man very promptly denied the responsibility and started telling God, the woman that you gave me, and he started making excuses. And men today are still making excuses. So that the question is, when we deal with gender issues, how do we make the men understand that they fall into a gender in the same way as women fall into a gender? And we're not just talking about sex, we're not talking about male or female. We are talking about gender in terms of roles and functions. So if the mother has to do the nurturing and the cuddling and the caressing, what about the disciplining? What about the leadership? What does the man do in respect of pointing the child or children in that direction? Now, a number of men were invited to come, and they gave all sorts of excuses. And we recognized that a significant number of those men were not good examples of fathers. They were not good examples of role models. Look at this. A child leaves home at 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30, to go to school out of Charlotteville. And while he or she is on his or her way to school, the father is coming home. He is supposed to have been finished working. Whether he started working at midnight, I don't know. But he's coming home. When the child comes back from school in the evening, sometimes after 3 o'clock, somewhere at the point where he or she would have passed the father in going to school, it's the same point where he or she meets the father, claiming that he's socializing with the boys. But the question is, was there any constructive activity that the father could have been engaged in at home? Is the father prepared to accept the responsibility that as a father, he ought to be there for the child and be at home in the evening to assist the child in doing the lesson, and to see to it that the child does some of the home chores, so that when mom comes from work tired, she doesn't have to prepare dinner, prepare the children, see about home lesson, and then do the activities afterward. That's a serious consideration. Now, the community, through the play acting sessions, got the impact. Unfortunately, the follow-up was a challenge we have not been able to master. Now, we got the impression that one of the best ways to get people to become involved was through the churches. And the groups did 3 sessions at 3 of the main churches in the community. Only in one church was there a significantly large number of men. In the other churches, it was predominantly women. And then we have to ask ourselves, what do we do? Because we look at our own country and we see what's happening. We see the kind of deviant and negative behaviors that boys are perpetrating and girls are gravitating to. And then you have to ask, if the father or the man is supposed to be the leader in the home, what is he doing to ensure that his home is a stable and constructive unit of society, so that the children that come out of that home are decent and constructive and responsible citizens? What is he doing? And if he's doing nothing, then what happens to the society? Now, many men are of the view that women should not aspire to reach it up at any level at all. But then in a situation where too many men are aspiring towards nothing, if the woman will not aspire to reach it up, are we all going to struggle to see who could remain deepest at the bottom? And what kind of children are we unleashing? Are we producing delinquents and hooligans and criminals? Are we pointing children to a better way of life? Now, I argued at one of the workshops that the behavior of men is far than is to be desired, far from what is to be desired. And I was pointing out that the way some men socialize, the way they conduct themselves, if women did the same thing, the women are going to be called names that we can't even describe. Why is it that it is felt by society that it is mature for men to do a host of things, including having millions of women, but it is not mature for women to do that? Is it the responsibility only of women to set the examples? Is it the responsibility only of women to draw the lines? Is it the responsibility only of women to be concerned about what happens in society later on? Or is it a joint and shared responsibility of both men and women? So the question is, when we talk about male and female, are we just talking about male sex and female sex? Or are we talking about gender? Are we talking about roles and responsibilities? Now, if you take a look around, you're going to see that the women in this group outnumber most men. That has always been the case, and it will continue to be so. And it is not that the women have not been making attempts, but the question is, what really rubs off on the men? We discovered in Charlotteville that not even food would bring them out, because even when we prepare refreshments, they would not come. So the issue is, what is this that we are going to do? Because I am certain that this is not typical only of my community. The very fact that we have more women here than men suggests that in the entire national community, men have been abdicating their responsibility. The stress that many women face is not only a result of physical abuse or financial abuse or verbal abuse. It is the stress of non-support on the part of men in getting themselves involved in helping women to build a better society. I know that the people who really made themselves available, they benefited to the extent that we are trying to establish a parent support group and take the program from there. We are not happy that it should go to waste, and therefore our determination is to carry this group and continue to teach what has been taught us. We hope that by our efforts, we are going to help our community to recognize that we have a responsibility to build a better country. Thank you.
Good morning to each and everyone. I'm also a community member of Charlotteville, and the group that came from the Gender and Development Studies, they impacted our lives greatly. They increased our thinking on parenting, and it helped impact how we should be good role models to our children. Despite the few turnouts we had, we really were successful as a group. And from that, we formed a community support group, parent community support group in last year, July. And from there, we want to continue to strive and to grow, to enhance our community. And each time we meet, we want to at least bring one more person with us. And I don't think that will be very hard for us to do. Personally, it had a great impact on my life. Being a parent also, it helped me to think further and more deeper about my role as a parent. And that helped to prepare me futurally for the growth of my children. And I want to thank the group of the Gender and Development Studies that came to our community. And I want to wish them all the success in their future endeavors, in wherever they go to improve the lives of others. Thank you.
Now we're going straight to our Aranguez, our Socorro Community Liaison, Mr. Glenn Williams.
Good morning. I'm Mr. Williams. I'm the liaison officer for Aranguez, Socorro area. First, I'd like you to know I got involved with the program through the school in Aranguez, as I am the vice chairperson of the PTA there. And when the unit came in to Aranguez, they did a program in our school, and they did one with the community, and that's why I got involved through the community programs. I will just give a brief sketch of what we did in our groups, so you will have an idea, and I'll give you an idea of the impact. In Aranguez, as liaison officer, I helped to arrange the venues for the meetings and the workshops in the area, and particularly with the parenting programs, the parenting workshops. Those were very enhancing, and I must say that I was a part of that program, the parenting program. And the classes were done in such a way that it was interesting, you know, it had fun in it. We actually did actual sketches and skits with actual parenting skills being added onto the class as we went along. The methodology was to have interactive, and it was interactive, and allowed us to participate and find solutions to problems through discussion and interaction with each other. We did drama as part of the training that we got, and it was very helpful to all of us who participated in the class. The class wasn't a very large class, as you would have heard from yesterday in the contributions that were made, that Aranguez is a bit different because of the attitudes. We have parents who are working, and it was a bit difficult, so our class was rather a small group of people, and we just stick together. We just decided that we were going to go with it, and we stayed together and did the class. We created experiences through workshops and experience and so on. The lessons were wonderful. We learned about being what a minor is, and we talked about gender. It helped us to understand what gender is all about, and we found out ways, and one of the things that came up with the gender is we found out ways to help persons who are actually victims of CSA. We used our own initiative in the class. Again, we used a bit of drama, and we highlighted a scene where someone was actually affected by child sexual abuse and how we would approach it, the method that we would use to approach it. So that was very interesting for us. And one of my functions also as the officer was to distribute posters and that sort of thing to sensitize the community about the program. The challenges are that, as I said, people are working. It's a community that is not only residential, but is also commercial, so it was a bit difficult. And hence we had to revert to cottage meetings, which was a little more effective for us to get the message across. And this work is still going on. We still have to, there's a lot of work there to be done, and we are endeavoring to do our best with the cottage meetings and try to continue to reach as many as we can in the community. That was about what we did, and we are planning something for later in September, which we would make known a little more public. It's now in the planning stages, so that we can continue to highlight the program and how important it is in the community and by extension the wider community. I want to just endorse what my colleague from Tobago said. I support him fully in what he said. He spoke, a part of his address was from a scriptural perspective, and I stand firm with that decision. I believe the same thing too. Men have abdicated their responsibilities. There's no questions about that. And we need to step up and take our rightful places in our homes and in our families, because we are the leaders of our home. That's a God-given right that God has given to all men. Now, we are the ones that are supposed to stand up and set the examples. We are supposed to be the role models in our homes. And in society, we have too many double standards. We tell the children one thing and we do something else, not understanding that the children are looking at us. We must also remember that we are the first teachers of the child, that they will emulate what they see us do because they spend more time at home. The second place they go is to school. And many of us believe that the teachers in the school are the parents. That we dump the children in the school and we go our way. We don't go to the school to find out what's happening with our children unless something happens to them. Then we go. There are parents who go to school and they don't even know the class that the child is in or the teacher that is in charge of that class. And we have abdicated our responsibilities. So we need to step up on our responsibilities as fathers, because we have to give an account for our children. You know, they are blessings from God. And we must take our responsibilities. I know it's difficult in some situations, but we have to do our best that we possibly can, because they are our future generation to come. And it's a sad thing to see what is happening to our children today. It's really, really sad. I have 3 kids, and I have to thank God for the 3 kids that He gave me. That we are church-going people, and they've been brought up in a certain way. I have a young son at 20. He'll be 20 later this year. And I can sit here and I can tell you, I'm confident of him, that he's not going to go the wrong way, because he got the right training at home. So we need to set the right examples for our children to follow. Child sexual abuse is a sad thing, and it's very prevalent. And we need to really take a firm decision and stand and do what we can. I applaud those who are responsible for the program. I commend them, and I will pray that this program will continue to go. Whatever I can do in my capacity to assist in whatever area I can, I will. I thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Elizabeth St. Bernard. I'm a parenting agent with the Toco Foundation. I can heartily endorse everything that Mr. Williams and Mr. Browne said about men not stepping up to the plate. I have been a parenting agent for about 10 years, and I have 23 homes that I service. I have 5 men sitting into the sessions. So you see, many are out of it. Some would run under the mango tree. Some would say they're going to take a smoke. That is the time one want to use the bathroom, and things like that. And some outright would tell you they're not listening. They don't want to be here. So men have to step up to the plate. I was very glad when I was asked to help out and to get people to come into the sessions, the workshops on child sexual abuse, because we have seen in our area a lot of these cases. Sad to say, you cannot get the children to talk out. I call them big stones, because you can't get them to talk out. Some would open up, and after they would shut down. And it's a sad thing to see. Children hurting and they can't do anything about it. I have been to the police station asking help, asking what can you do if I come and say a child is being molested. What can you do? And I am told, unless the child says something, even though they know about it, they can't do anything about it unless the child says something. And sometimes in the area, everybody know about this is happening, even the lawmen in the area, and nothing is being done. When this group came into our area, this was one of the things that was told to this group that they would like to hear about, child sexual abuse. Sad to say, we had just about 20 people, 2 men, that was all. And the 2 men happened to be lawmen who were there. So fathers didn't come out at all. And the sessions were great, very informative. The first day had about 3 persons fallen down, had to take them up. These people were abused and had to go outside, talk to them and whatnot. And one of the things that one of them told me is that from a child being abused, come having a husband abusing her, she didn't know that she could have done something about it. She thought she had to stay in the situation. Many of them think like that. I have had children who say, I told mommy and she doesn't do anything about it, so I have to stay. What do we do? As parents, I've cried, I've quarreled. What do we do? This group came in, and many of the parents were made aware because I went out and I preach, I quarrel, everything, I talk about it, but sometimes some would take the information, some would not. So we have many instances of this abuse still in the area. But one good thing that came out from this is that the ladies formed a support group in Matlot. And this support group has been going on for a while. They even want to start a support group for children of school age. Now, they need help in this area. So I'm asking help for them in this area, how to start this with the teenagers. The group that they are in is going from strength to strength. 11 sessions, well, 11 sessions has gone, and they shut down, wanting to do something different. I have asked help, hasn't got it, but I'm still hoping that it will be given. We need more of these workshops in the area, not only on child sexual abuse, on many different topics. Toco Foundation has a parenting program in the area, so people know about the parenting program. We go from home to home. We don't have workshops. We do it one-on-one. We did a baseline survey, and those homes that said yes to our program, we are in those homes, and we are making a difference in those homes. Many parents can attest that who used to cloud the children, as they say, it's no longer like that. They have obedient children and things like that. But the child sexual abuse, we need to do something about it, and our hands are kind of tied. Because culturally, it's okay. So we need to change the mindset of the people to know that this is not okay, and we need help in this area. So we would welcome many more workshops like this. Thank you very much.
I think really good to hear that a discussion or a dialogue about gender has also, and gender roles and masculinity and femininity has also been part of the dialogues about this issue in the community. So now's our chance to hear from you, the microphones are at both sides. Yes, come.
Mr. Williams, this question is for you, and I hope I'm not too forward by broaching this aspect of it. When I looked at the 3 communities that were investigated, Toco, Charlotteville, and Arangwes, Arangwes is the only urban community there, and it proved to have some problems in the study. One, you said that Dr. Reddock, explained that it was the meetings took the nature of cottage meetings, and you had a problem getting people to participate. And I'm wondering if the fact that it was an urban community, you said that a lot of people were working, so they couldn't put aside the time to participate. But I'm wondering if there's an ethnic disparity there. So would you mind commenting on that? Because sometimes in the line of work where we are, sometimes we find that East Indian people are of the impression that CSA affects a particular population, and that is very far from the truth. So would you mind commenting on if you think that is a problem, and if you feel as the officer there's anything that could be done about it? Yeah.
But I wanted to just check. I kept hearing that it was small groups. But what were the numbers that constituted the small groups in the 3 different areas?
With respect to your question, ma'am, yes, there's well, we all know that Arangwes specifically and Socorro is more of a Indo population, right? Although we have the Afro population there as well, but the Indo people will outnumber them if you really do a check. In terms of child sexual abuse in the community, yes, I'm not going to say it's not prevalent or it's not present in the community, but they tend to keep it quiet because of the stigma that will be attached to it, so they will keep it quiet. The question of getting people to come out, that was really a challenging problem. And one of the things is that you find that, as my brother here from Tobago was sharing with the men not coming out, you would find that they would rather stop by the bar to lime on an evening coming from work with the boys than rather to come to the meeting. because they find that will be a form of relaxation for them before they get home. And that was one of the things that we had as a challenge in the Socorro area, the Aranguez area, that we had to do workshops in the bar.
And what we recommended to the people at the program was that another way of getting to it was through the schools. So we would ask the teachers at the schools to bring in trained people to work with them and have sessions with the children, and in a very subtle way, knowing that this thing could have severe implications, find out whether in fact the children were indeed affected. And we did get some success. Through the schools, we did get information to the effect, yes, that feature exists. Now, when we were doing the issues on parenting, and that was raised, the lecturers also pointed out some novel ways to the ladies in which they could approach the matter. Now, the reality is that in some instances, we have the mothers themselves being abused as well as the children, right? So it's a typical case of out of the frying pan into the fire, right? But if through the schools we could get the teachers to interact with the children and get information, then that may be the far easiest way. Because obviously, if the men are not going to become involved, and you could hardly meet them straight for an ask, is this the case? Then it means that the only other way to go is by the children. And from our own experience, we did recognize that we are getting some success by asking the teachers to interrelate with the students so that they could indicate whether or not they were in fact affected.
We have been talking about moving away from the whole notion of the confines of nuclear family. That is how we are looking at family today, with a yard, a car, a dog, and a fence. We have to revisit community as family. And what is happening there, I'm seeing that there is a perfect opportunity to open up the communities and have the community members look after. All our children deserve the best care and attention. I am getting away from and encouraging people to get away from the labeling single parent, blended, divorced, whatever. Labels cause us to stereotype and bias and prejudice. And we must get away from those labels. There are mothers and children living in homes, and mothers and fathers and children living in homes, and this is the 21st century, and we have to stop beating this notion that we can get fathers back in homes. We're going to be saying this in the next 15, 20 years, and we have to start looking out for each other. When I talk at PTA meetings and I say, look, if there's a mother at home with her children very comfortable, she's a housewife and her husband, I guess, can take care of the home, and there is someone living next door, a boy at 9 or 10, coming home with his own key, opening, has to go to the fridge, get his own because there's no one at home, everybody is out working. What is the problem with this mother who is at home taking this child who is next door, telling the mother, listen, I am at home and I observe that. That means you have to move out of your fence. You have to come out of your gate and go to the next door. I have observed this and I am willing to help. If you come home at 6, 7, or 8, your son is at home for 3, 4 hours by himself. Give me some clothes, let me take him, help him to see about his homework. He and my daughter or son would work together, and this is what we need to do. I mean, the whole thing about child sexual abuse and even child abuse, if we open up our communities, it will no longer be hidden, and people would be involved. I could feel the Toco community's pain, because the kinds of things that you are talking about needs in-depth psychological counseling to change people's attitudes. And you cannot do it. And you will need a group of people, and this is where teams come in. We cannot ask teachers. I taught in a school. I was a guidance officer. Now I'm a psychologist. You cannot ask teachers to take children to police stations. There needs to be a team of professionals working in communities who can be referred, who can get it could be the somebody would refer this person to this team of professionals. And that is how, I mean, I guess when I'm looking at what is happening here, I can see that this is the direction that we can go in coming out of all of this that is happening here and opening up all of this. We have to open up communities and stop the living behind these fences and these walls. And our children will be, I mean, protected by a community of people. The men will still be in the rum shops, but there will be men like Mr. Browne, is it Mr. Browne, who will take 3 or 4 boys into his young men into his home and work with them, and with Miss, I'm sure in Charlotteville he has somebody like Miss, who would be a parenting agent, and get a team of people who would be able to work with the community. We have to begin to revisit this community as family and move away from that whole notion that I marry you and have children and we stay behind this fence.
What I'd like to just add to it in a very friendly way is a couple of comments, more for thoughts. One is, you have to get men to do emotional work. To have men in the house does not in any way avoid any form of abuse, be it psychological, economic, sexual, physical. If men cannot do emotional work, then by extension, men cannot speak with themselves or their kids and relate to others in a way that addresses notions of feelings. And if men can't talk about feelings, then the very incestuous relationships that are happening in the house will continue through a silence that is going to be paralysis, it's going to cripple us. So the crippling of that silence that happens because we want men in the house, somehow assumes they're going to be doing good things, is more than simply saying we want you in the house, we'd like to have you in the house, but we want to have you in the house doing emotional work, 1. 2, to talk about the family as this giving woman the role of mothering, by extension what it does is make men produce a masculinity based on primarily an economic reproduction and rule enforcement. That economic reproduction and rule enforcement, by extension, gives men the right to violate anybody in the family or anyone in the family, by extension, and incest, because they become enforcers, and rape is a form of force. And so if we want men to be enforcers, then we need to talk about enforcement with emotions, enforcement with feelings. We need to also ask men to try to understand what it means to unlearn masculinities that are dominant. Because the dominant masculinity is the masculinity which we are trying to get at here to understand in ways that men can see themselves, that they can afford to be expressing feelings, tenderness, and still be men. And we are not asking them to police their masculinity, but rather to be men with human hearts, with feelings. And men that can humanize themselves and humanize the world, so that the very issue we are trying to talk about can have a human touch to it. What it is, we mustn't be suffering from that shortage of feelings, because we are suffering too much from a shortage of feelings as men, and suffering from a shortage of emotions. Therefore, by extension, we're going to make our kids deprived of those very things. And so we have to also unlearn this whole notion of a heterosexual family that is so prevalent in the discourse that seems to be the only way to raise kids. We have to look at the multiplicity of families, the differences in families, the same-sex families, and they are not abomination to God, they exist. So therefore we need to talk about how families are different, diverse, and at the same time reproducing what society wants. And the last thing I want to say is that I think we must have a relationship with ourselves. And that's not easy to do. So I think in order to move the agenda in ways that we begin to connect with our kids who are suffering, we need to talk about trauma. We need to talk about trauma, and we need to do work on history. We need to do work on history, trauma, and memory, because that's how we can really understand where men are going and women are going with their past around abuse. And I didn't want to really talk, but I just had to say a few things so that you can leave with something too.
Some years ago, I worked in the Matlock community. So I'm happy to hear about Matlock because I have a real love for Matlock and working with the individuals up there. It's a challenge, but you have to love this work with a passion. Otherwise, it ain't making sense. In the Sandigandi area, we had a community stakeholders group through the community policing. As a social worker, I met with people sent from the courts who were having problems, and we managed to work out in such a way that we met on Saturday evenings to deal with various issues. Coming out of that, we zeroed into the fathers. And there was a lovely project there going. In a particular case, in one of the schools, a father, in speaking to him about his son, there were some issues, and he started to cry. Men could talk to men, and they feel comfortable. You tell me? He said, glad as a social worker, you're a man, no? He said, I could talk to you. And then he started to laugh because through the issues, I made him, and through the process, he was laughing. And one of my colleagues in another room asked me, how you get a man to laugh? And I think that we must develop, because through the community police, the stakeholders program, I suggested to them, and I don't think we ever carried it out, but this same idea about the team, we were thinking about it. Having a team approach and going into the community. But you have to meet men where they are. So I went and landed on the beach. I went looking for a father, I can't find him. He fishing. I went and sit down and wait until he came in, and we spoke. You have to go to the rum shop. You have to meet them where they are. So when constantly you keep that kind of relationship, and I must say this, sometimes we want results fast, 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 no, no, no. And you get fed up because the man is listening and the man is talking. Men talk. A lot of us say men don't talk, but men talk. But how they talk? They will talk to the other woman, and they will tell the other woman all that the wife or the girlfriend harassing them with and they can't take on, and they talk. So they say, well, men silence, that is all talk. Men talk. You want a man talk in your house? You go and take out his money in the pants and he ain't give you. He don't talk. Because that money has to buy milk for the child. I see my mother do it. We need to understand and study the habits of men. We need to understand how, and in different areas, different communities, my East Indian brother, and the question was asked about the kind of taboo. And we are afraid to go into a season. We have the Hindu Marriage Act, and we have the Muslim Marriage Act, and we don't want to touch that at all. But both Muslim, Hindu, and Christian in the same school, the 13-year-old having sex because she married, the 14-year-old having sex, married, but the Christian who is 17 cannot have sex, not married, and they ain't get married there because of the differences in the marriage acts. But we fail to touch that. We fail to touch that. So how then do you rationalize and say child sexual abuse when there are differences? How do you explain that to the Christian? How do you explain that? So you see the dilemma this society faces. So therefore, fathers now have to understand these kind of scenarios and be able, but you have to work along with the fathers in the community. And my sister said, the community, there are differences right now. We grew up differently. All of us used to line together, all of us separate marbles together. Not so. We texting now. When I first learned this thing, it was like, me, I fled. So in Jamaica, the girl is having sex on the banister in the school with the boy. They take out a picture, and before he reaches home, he gone through the village already, he having sex with this girl. Hello? And we don't want to get into the underworld. I want to know what's going on. But in order for me to know what's going on, I must understand the technology. But that's something else. So that there are different approaches that we have to use, and one cap doesn't fit all. So we need to understand, as my brother said just now, we have to study psychology, and don't think that we think our parents don't know about psychology. My mother was one of the greatest psychologists we had. Because we feel it has to be in the book. It's not in the book, in the head.
I have a couple questions and I guess some comments. Let me start with this relationship between sex and religion that the brother just spoke about there. I'm not too sure if I completely agree with the slant of there being a sort of a discrimination. The Christian youth will feel discriminated against because, you know, other young people can start having sex because they could get married earlier, you know. I don't think that that's the relationship I don't think that's what's happening with many young people. And this is my experience as a reasonably young person who've engaged in a lot of, not sex, but talking to young people, really. A series of workshops, like, I mean, I don't know, I don't usually like to say this, but I have been known to be called the condom man, so I've spoken to a lot of kids. And what they're going through is not just within the realms of religion, but what your point is saying is a matter for policy. And I think looking at national policy and legislation and making changes there. So I support you, but, you know, I have to defer a little bit off of that point. In the discussion around gender and the role of men, I couldn't help but hear again this connection with religion and the importance of religion. And I don't want to question it, but I do think that religion is losing its importance in many places of the world, even though we do have a lot of splurges or growth patterns in some religious sectors. And in your understanding of these roles that men and women have, I want to kind of challenge you to to see it outside of the box whereby God has ascribed a specific leader within the family, and see that it is not about a battle between mothering and fathering, but that we need to redefine the role as parenting, that women and men parent, and they don't necessarily mother or father. Of course, there's certain things that a woman can do biologically in her parenting role. But you know, parenting is a process. You have to be emotionally prepared for that. And women, as well as men, go through a lot of stress and challenges around parenting. So that's one key point. I couldn't help but hear a little bit of a concern when my colleague Anne-Marie Moore came up, and I don't know if it's Anne-Marie Moore, but someone suggested that men, you know, maybe the man, Mr. Browne, could take three boys into his home. And I feel like if in the community there's a concern if a man takes 3 boys into his home, because you might think that man is going to sexually abuse them. I don't know if you all saw this movie, Daddy Daycare, I think it was, and the fact that all these women were like, you know what I mean? We have to confront that, and that is a main challenge. How many men do you know working as early childhood educators, for example? And the fact that we also have a challenge where men, they don't see the status anymore, stress anymore, because men used to, you know, the role of a teacher was a very masculine role, and men used to control that particular sector. So that's something to consider as well. Redefining the community, and to go beyond the family and extending the family to your neighbors. I want to challenge the men, I think, that working with men in the workplace, working with men in the sporting arena, are all great avenues to shape and redefine their concept of masculinities and being a man in a non-violent way, and a more respectful way, and a non-abusive way as well. Which then leads me to, I would like to hear a little bit about the Toco, the radio soap opera. It was spoken about, and I wanted to know if there is that role that the media could then play, and something that maybe Toco could share with the rest of the national community, so the radio stations don't just play a ton of music and talk off the top of their head, but there might be a role for scripted soap operas and storytelling, really, telling stories of how people could change their life. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Thanks.
We are all engaged in a very hard struggle. We are engaged in a battle that seems to be one-sided. Well, let's recognize that, as your brother said, the results may not necessarily come now, but they may come sometime. An ancient Chinese philosopher once said, the only thing necessary for the cause of evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Now, I don't know that you're just speaking of men in terms of masculinity. You're speaking of human beings. But I have the idea that he certainly suggested men because he expected that they would be the leaders and do the God-given task given to them. But if in fact we are going to do something, we have to do it now. Let's not figure, well, it doesn't affect me, right? I'm not a part of it, so I'm not concerned. Because once we live in a society, once we live in the community, one way or the other, directly or indirectly, we are affected. And therefore, if you're going to do something, let's do it now. Why? The Arab philosophers tell us, yesterday is dead. Tomorrow is not born. There is only today. I thank you.
I would just like to add to what the lady was speaking about the community. It takes a community to raise a child. And we have become a people that is very selfish. We think of ourselves. We don't think of anybody else. Society has become selfish. And I'll tell you why. I had a recent experience, and sitting in a group, I'm chairing the group, and something happened to me. It's a more personal thing. And one of the members of the group heard a whisper about what I experienced. And instead of being sensitive to what I was experiencing, they came down very hard on me. And I felt sad about that. We need to have that love for each other. And when we have that love, then we can go forward. Our children, our dearest, precious, to us, and we need to share that love, and we need to have an eye out for each other. That was in the old days. I remember that in the old days when I used to go to school. I remember the day I went to school. My primary school wasn't far from home. And I got flogged in school for making an error on the blackboard. And the boys who were in my class passed home before I got home for lunch. And my mom knew that I got licks in school that morning. So we need to take care of each other. We cannot be just concerned for ourselves. We need to have a wider scope. We need to open our arms to receive others. Because we have a lot of kids out there who need help, and there's no one to help them. And what we're doing today is just one step in going in that direction, and I wanted to continue. So I'd like to make this plea to everybody here this morning and to the wider society that we start to share that love so that we can get rid of this stigma that is going around with CSA, child sexual abuse.
As a parenting agent, I think I have seen it all. I've heard it all. I have dealt with many, many different cases, especially with child sexual abuse, where children, you're not feeling comfortable to open up to the police or anybody else. We have called in agencies that we think that could have helped. I've had a case about 3 weeks ago, and nobody from that agency turned up. And that child kept saying she would like to talk to somebody outside, knowing my face, I am living in the community. She wasn't feeling that comfortable to say everything. And from that agency, no one turned up. And it's like that up to now. So maybe if we start thinking that all the children in Trinidad and Tobago, and maybe the world over, they are our own, maybe we will do something about what is happening. So I'm urging all of us not to turn a blind eye. Reach out and help in any way that we can. I need help. As a parenting agent, I can't do it all. And I need these agencies to step up when they see that they are coming. These children are looking out. Sad to say, the child was placed back in the home by the policeman because the gentleman who was doing whatever is a relative to one of the policemen in the station, and nothing is being done. That child is there now, and every day she's calling, what is happening, Miss Betty? We need to help our children. They are reaching out to us. We need to open our arms and reach out to them also. Thank you.
Okay, many people are concerned that the size of the groups that take part in the work are very small, and not just the work that I did with Aranguez and Charlotteville, but that is true for a lot of the community work that I've done. But I wanted to say that it is not so much the size I notice that is important, but the types of participants. Because the people who take part in these groups tend to already have quite a great deal of leadership capacity, and so they have a multiplier effect in terms of the work that is done. And one of the strengths of this work is that it has this sustained follow-up, which allows you to see that multiplier effect taking place. Right? This work also brings out the importance of multiple modes of interventions to reach a diverse community, because I think the real challenge is not really the size of the group, but whether we are reaching the kinds of diversity in the community, and whether or not we leave out certain key persons because of, various kinds of phobias or alienation that takes place in the community. Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I want to say, as a man in the audience here, I want to apologize to the females in particular for our role in TT. I also want to say that, the young lady mentioned that the children need help. I think the men need help, because I think we're missing out, And I think it starts from a tender age. I think it all has to do with rules. For example, we grow children or male children to not even participate in terms of what you might call family support. You know, chores at home, even child rearing, you know, providing, you know, some assistance to the mothers in raising children. We have them sort of aloof and sort of estranged from, say, family. And then at the end of the day, the end product is alienated men. Men who spend more time being egoistic, machoistic, and lost in terms of, say, family contribution. So I think this problem is a deeper problem. And I think the problem is a cultural, you know, a universal problem even, that our relationship, men-women relationship, I don't really hold to this thing that the men are the head of homes and these Christian principles. It's not my thing. I believe then that, you know, roles have to be interrelated. I think that we need to move away from these sort of strict definitions that, you know, the young men, you know, separate themselves. I think, you know, as human beings, we need to move away from the sexual differences and the ape and chimpanzee relationship and just get into that we are all human beings and that, you know, we have a part to play. I think ego has a lot to do with it, and I think humility is important. And how we find this humility? You know, probably through the church, through the philosophical teachings, but somehow we have to come to this point where we have to realize that as men, we are estranged, we are losing out, and we need to sort of find our place. So I think most of all, men need help. We need help. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to thank our panelists, Mr. Arturus Browne, Ms. Janelle Greene, Mr. Glenn Williams, and Ms. Elizabeth St. Bernard. Thank you very much. I think while we have noted that the impact of the model has been about encouraging a dialogue and action on the issue of child sexual abuse and incest, it also highlights the continuing need for a dialogue about gender, gender roles, gender justice, gender equality as part and parcel of any change to violence in our homes and in our communities. So I think it's important for us to keep both dialogues going.
Gonna make it through this darkness. A light would shine someday for me. Yes, it will. I know that you won't leave me in this thing. Something doesn't feel right. Could somebody help me? I heard him say, hush, don't say a word. Gonna get messy if anybody heard. I heard him say, hush, don't say a thing. Think about the trouble you put me in. I heard him say, hush, don't you know who I am? A well-known woman, a respected man. Something doesn't feel right. Could somebody help me? Something doesn't feel right. Could somebody help me? I heard him say, hush, don't say a word. Gonna get messy if anybody heard. I heard him say, hush, don't say a thing. Think about the trouble you'll put me in. I heard him say, hush, don't you know who I am? A well-known woman, a respected man. I'm breaking the silence 'cause I'm under attack. No, I'm breaking the silence and take my life back. No, I'm breaking the silence and take my life back. And take my life back.